All right, well, here we are. My number one game of 2022, to everyone's surprise, is in fact Elden Ring. Yeah, there's so much to this game. As somebody who has only played a couple of FromSoft games and has only ever really dipped their feet into the Souls franchise, this game has made me want to dive deeper into the Souls franchise and try out Bloodborne, the Dark Souls games, Demon Souls. The idea of an open world Souls game, I never really thought that thing could really be possible, because I never really thought that it would be something that could be done well, but they did it well. And like, it's not even that it doesn't even really feel like an open world Souls game at times. It actually, a lot of the times, it just feels like 7 or 8 Souls games crammed into one giant game. You know, there's just so much to do. I logged a solid 150 hours into the game. I streamed the entire thing. It's all on my channel. Oh my gosh, like probably one of the best gaming experiences that I have ever had, and one of the most fun. And I feel like I say that about a lot of the games that I talk about that I really enjoyed, like year after year, but like they really just do keep getting better and better for me. I really like the build variety in this game. You know, there's hundreds of different weapons and different spells and just so many ways to play through this game. That's what really makes it fun, because you know, you can find like your one thing and stick to that. That's kind of what I did. You know, I kind of found like a few weapons that I really enjoyed, and then I kind of just stuck with those because I was having so much fun with them. But my goodness, like there's like the play styles are endless. It seems infinite. The things that you can do, there are things that I'm seeing people on TikTok and just like on YouTube and everything do that I didn't even think moves like that were possible in this game, but they are. I didn't even think like weapons or abilities like that could exist, but they do. There's just so much variety, and I really love that, like, you know, at least, so in my experience, you know, I've only ever played Sekiro and Code Vein. That's my only, like, Souls-like, I guess, experience outside of Elden Ring. I remember I tried Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 3, like, forever ago, and I just couldn't get into it because I wasn't great at it. But now that I have like a newer appreciation for the Souls franchise, I think I want to give them a shot again. But in the Souls-like games that I've experienced, you know, usually like what happens is like if you get stuck on a boss fight, usually there's not much you can do. Maybe you can go like grind out some levels, or maybe like try some different armor or whatever, or maybe even go back and find some more stuff, you know, but you're kind of stuck, you know. It's like you kind of just gotta work through it and figure it out and win, you know. There's not really a whole lot you can do outside of maybe like leveling, and maybe if you got to an area that you might have missed, find something that might be useful to you. And so, but in Elden Ring, you know, if you get stuck somewhere, you can just leave and just go somewhere completely different, you know, and then because it's so big, and you can, I never really felt like I was stuck at all, you know. There was always like some other direction to go, and there was something new over there. There was always some area to explore that I haven't been to yet, that you know, as instead of just like going and grinding out enemies in a certain area, I can actually go and check out this new area while getting runes for levels, and while, you know, getting runes to buy new things. And then you come back after you explore a couple areas to that boss you were struggling with, and then you have a much easier time with it because you might have found something like a weapon or a piece of armor or something that actually is better suited for that fight, or that can help you prog through the game faster, or more efficiently, I should say, not faster. But yeah, I never ever felt stuck, you know, because there was always you could always just go out and explore, and there's always so much to see, and there's so many just like points of interest. Like everywhere I look, I feel like there's something catching my eye, and it's like, okay, well now I gotta go here, but now I gotta go here. Every area is super unique. Like Limgrave is a much different area from Caelid, which is like the Red Sky area of the game, which is a much different area from the snowfields. It's just the areas, they all stand out in their own way. And oh my gosh, there has to be like 200 bosses or something in this game. I don't actually really know how many bosses, but there is a lot. And there are, you know, whether they're just kind of hanging out like in the open area, or whether you go to like one of those like those jails, or like the circle things that you interact with, or whether you find a dungeon to go through and there's a boss in there. There's so many bosses. Some of them are more annoying than others, but at least like the story fights, were crazy, dude. Like some of the spectacle to some of these boss fights were just on a whole other level. And you know, kind of like any Souls game, you know, whenever you take down these big bosses, it's the most satisfying thing to do in the game. You know, it's not that like the combat is super in-depth like and flashy like God of War Ragnarok combat is, but like I said, there's so much variety, and there's hundreds of different weapons, and there's all kinds of different things that you can do. And along with the boss designs being one of the highlights of this game, like that's what makes fighting enemies and bosses in this game fun. It's just the design of enemies and the design of bosses, and figuring things out, and figuring out which build and which weapons, which patterns, you know, which things work for you to conquer the challenge that is ahead of you. There's like a bajillion dungeons and caves in this game, and it's crazy because like that's another highlight of these Souls games, is like the level design. Like every cave and dungeon felt kind of unique in its own way, and it just felt like an entire Souls level in itself, just traversing through them and figuring it out. And it's just the dungeons and the caves and just the areas are just so intricate, you know, and there's so many secrets, and it's really fun discovering those secrets and discovering, you know, the ways to like solve these puzzles and to traverse from one area to the other. And it's really fun. Like for example, in like in the snow area, there's a whole area where like there's like this like castle looking building, and if you actually like walk off the edge, there's actually, if you walk in the right spot, there's actually like an invisible bridge that you can't see, but you kind of got to just like figure out it's there, that leads like to this structure. And it's like that stuff like that is so cool to me, you know. There's just so much to do in this game, and it's so grand, it's so epic, you know. There's always like new surprises around every corner, around every area. There's just a lot. There's a lot to see, and it's a fun time, especially if you're into Souls games. But if you're somebody who is getting, you know, just getting their feet wet, or has never played a Souls game before, Elden Ring is the game for you. Not to mention the soundtrack's amazing. The story is quite good, although not the highlight of it. You know, I feel like the highlight story-wise is in its lore, because you learn a lot just from talking to NPCs and just interacting with things in the world. Yeah, that's where like the juicy part of the story is. It's in its lore. And there's also a bunch of different endings that you can get. You know, I think there's like 5 or 6 different endings that you can get in this game, depending on like what quest lines you decide to do. You know, quests are completely optional for the most part. You know, there's not really like, they don't really kind of direct you to like specific areas. You kind of just got to pay attention to the NPCs and pay attention to certain dialogue, and then you can figure out where to go from there. And I actually kind of like that with a game like this, you know, because that's how, from, you know, what I've seen and heard, like that's how Souls games kind of always have been. It's kind of been like, yeah, like just pay attention to what they're saying and then figure it out. Or when you get like an item or a weapon, like read its lore. There might be a hint in like the description or the lore of that thing to tell you what you need to do for the next part of the quest. And I think stuff like that is actually quite fun. But yeah, aside from the boss fights and just design, the world design itself being like the big #1 highlight for me, this game is just fun, man. Like, it's just, you could just get lost in this world for hours, and you can just be playing for hours and hours and not get tired of it. And that was pretty much like my entire playthrough. Like, there were days where I just did not want to stop playing the game. I just did not. Like, I would go 4.5, 5 hours straight and not be tired of it, because there was always something new to see. There was always some kind of enemy or boss or area to conquer, and it's just, there's so much in this game. There's so many little secrets. I don't really know how else to describe it other than you need to at least try this game, even if you're new or you've never played a Souls game before. I will say, I probably my biggest gripe with it was there's a lot of repeat bosses. There's a lot of bosses are very similar to each other. Sometimes they'll just stick 2 bosses that you fought before, but just in one boss encounter, and it gets old after a while. I think I fought like 9 tree spirits at least, like tree spirit avatars or whatever the heck they're called, in the game, and it's a gripe that I have, but I kind of understand, because it's like, well, this game is so big, so there's gonna be like, you're gonna see some of the same bosses over and over again. I definitely felt like some overstayed their welcome. I don't mind fighting a couple of the same bosses in like a couple of times in different areas, but yeah, I think there was just some that just, I think I really enjoyed the boss variety, but I think a lot of them were very, very repetitive, and some of them kind of unnecessary. Outside of like the main story bosses, I thought all the story fights were fantastic. Like, every single story fight in the game was fantastic. Melania, who's technically not a story fight, one of the best boss fights in the game. Also the hardest fight in the game. Not a story fight, but it is very, very, very much worth it going out of your way to try to figure out how to get to her and fighting her, because it is an experience. My favorite fight in the game was Star Scourge Radon, just because of the spectacle of that fight, but that's like the thing. All these fights are very memorable. There's so many memorable encounters in this game, and although like the story isn't like I don't want to say the strong part, but like the highlight of this game, just like the encounters and the little surprises just via the game design are what make this game very memorable. And again, once you like dig more into the lore, and then you start to pay attention to like what some of the bosses and the NPCs are saying, there are some things that do hit harder once you kind of like read up on some things and you get an understanding of some of these characters. But yeah, I mean, I think it's fantastic, and you can do a new game plus and play through the game again, and again, the possibilities of builds are endless. I think replayability is high with this game, depending on, I guess, kind of who you are, though. I mean, at least for me, because it's so big and grand, I did everything that I could do on my first playthrough, and I was incredibly satisfied, because I didn't know whenever I was going to come back to it. But yeah, multiple endings, multiple builds. It's overall a good time, and it did win Game of the Year this year, and I think it very much well deserved Game of the Year this year. And there is co-op and PvP in this game, and the co-op, whenever the co-op works, it's actually quite fun. The only thing that sucks with the co-op is that if you die, or if somebody in your party dies, they get kicked out of your world, and then you have to like bring them back into your world. It's just a process, so it's kind of annoying. But I mean, if you don't die, and you just get good, and the co-op is a lot. It's a lot of fun with friends. The PvP, I barely touched a PvP. at all. But it's definitely something. It's definitely interesting. It's not, PvP isn't really my kind of thing with a game like this, but it is cool to see, you know, what other people can do against you. Because every time that I watch somebody play this game, I'm always seeing something done differently, right? I'm always seeing some kind of different move or weapon or something that I've just never seen before, and I think that that's really cool. But yeah, Elden Ring is my #1 game this year. I'm sure there's a lot more I could say about this game, but all y'all need to know is that you should play it. It was an experience I'll never forget. It's very worthy of Game of the Year. I think it very much deserved it. It's definitely my Game of the Year. I know a lot of other people really love this game as well, and it is a game that people will not be, well, I don't think we'll ever forget. You know, it's one of those games that just left its mark in gaming. That's all I have to say. Elden Ring is my #1 game of 2022, and that concludes my top 5 games of this year. If you guys have enjoyed this series, you know, please don't be afraid to drop a like on these videos and subscribe. We do a ton of live playthroughs on this channel. I will be doing a live stream. If I haven't already, I don't know when this video is going to be up, but I will be doing a live stream of all my top 5 games of 2022 this year, just to kind of further talk about how much, you know, more of how much I love them, because I'm sure I'm forgetting stuff, you know. There's only so much that I can remember, and I'm not going off of any notes or anything. I'm just kind of spitballing. That will also be happening, and thank you guys again for watching, and until the next playthrough, next series, whatever it is, my name's Andy. I'll see you later. Peace out.